wen hao, 代表太平洋沿岸电影的美国分析。我现在讲普通话，以表达我对中国各种的攻击。谁的电影偏好是我们或者该电影设计的唯一原因。做得好！Run Air 帮我不得不观看魔术争霸突袭 King 不要希望我感谢你。Yeah, I know, my pronunciation really sucks. Look, American school system, okay? You're lucky I know the planet is older than 6,000 years. With Pacific Rim, Guillermo del Toro took a premise and screenplay that was essentially a checklist of Saturday morning anime and tokusatsu cliches and dumped about 900 gallons of himself all over it until it resembled something like an elevation of the form. Don't get me wrong, I love it. It's a blast of a movie, but it's a blast of a movie that lives and dies almost entirely on style and atmosphere, and said atmosphere is all about the uniquely bizarre fusion of del Toro's retro pulp schlock horror sensibilities mashing together with what's otherwise not Godzilla versus not Gundam or dumb Evangelion. So the question with the Del Toro-less Pacific Rim Uprising was never whether or not a sequel could be as good as the original. Of course it can't. Pacific Rim was awesome, but there's really just enough there in the premise for one movie, and even then it's kind of thin if we're being honest. The question was, what does this even look like if you do one of these but don't try to replicate all the Del Toroism and instead just deliver the straightforward version of the most expensive looking live-action mecha anime ever produced? And the result? Pretty okay, actually. Now, it helps that Uprising isn't exactly devoid of style in its own right, just because it's opted to abandon the neon gothic nighttime aesthetic Del Toro established in the first film for 3D IMAX-friendly daytime primary colors. Instead, the aesthetic this time is largely borrowed from present-day Chinese military propaganda blockbusters like Red Sea and Wolf Warrior movies, which is appropriate since the sequel was largely backed by Chinese investors, features notable Chinese stars in prominent roles, and as mentioned up front is another technically American-made blockbuster that really only exists because Chinese multiplex chains really wanted another Pacific Rim movie. To that end, story-wise, it's 10 years out from the last one. Everyone, rather refreshingly, just kind of assumes up front that the kaiju will be back sooner or later, and the world's opinion on how best to prepare for this is divided between keep building more Jaegers or replace them with remote-piloted drone versions created by a Chinese robotics firm run by Jing Tian and Charlie Day from the first movie. John Boyega has the lead as the previously unmentioned son of Idris Elba's Stacker Pentecost, conscripted to help train a new generation of college-age Jaeger pilots along with Scott Eastwood. See, because it's meta, since this is all about a new generation inheriting a legacy from the previous, and Boyega is in the new Star Wars movies that are also meta in exactly the same way, and Scott Eastwood just keeps looking and sounding more and more like you get the idea. Anyway, things get all messy because a mysterious evil Jaeger shows up to cause trouble. Something fishy might be going on with that drone program, and to say any more would kind of give away what's actually a pretty good series of plot swerves at the midpoint, but suffice it to say there's very little fat on this one, but it does take an admirable stab at advancing the mythology of the franchise, and it's all in service of delivering about 4 or 5 very slick-looking giant robot and or monster battles that largely eschew the original's fixation on how machines and creatures that size would actually have to move and fight in favor of letting the new generation of Jaegers leap around like Ultraman and show off what that does to anything that gets in their way, which looks very silly but also very cool. The script and character, though, are less engaging this time around. There's the outline of a serviceable narrative here, but the structure is extremely awkward, and it feels like every time there was a fight between story flow and length of action scene, the second one got the win every single time. It almost feels like they should have gone with less plotting, to be honest with you, though. Between Boyega and Eastwood's on-off rivalry, the teenage Top Gun Starship Troopers riff happening with the new recruits, and the drone conspiracy storyline, there's almost kind of too much stuff going on for how little time Uprising wants to give to scenes that aren't about robot punching. But then again, in keeping with the film's amusing posture as the most Chinese-feeling, not actually Chinese blockbuster in years, those familiar with the standard political cultural tropes of mainland action thrillers will likely pick out most of the key beats well before they actually show up, including the surprise bad guy, the reveal of which is dropped a little too early, I believe, and Boyega's obligatory character evolution from decadent Western-style individualist party guy to solemn patriotic team player. Also, Meiko Mori fans should lower their expectations a little. She's really only here for exposition, because what everyone loved about Rinko Kikuchi's performance in the first movie was clearly her English language line delivery. Still, this is quite a bit of fun, if not as enrichingly fun as the first one, so I'm gonna say 2.5 stars. Kind of feels like the feature-length adaptation of the video you'd watch while waiting in line for Pacific Rim The Ride at Universal Shanghai or something, and I'd probably rather go on the ride, but the movie is fine.